Hey everybody, I'm David, and today I'm going to be talking about comments in SQL, aliases in SQL, and the order by statement in SQL. So let's go ahead and get started. So to begin, we'll talk about comments. And there are a number of different ways to write comments in SQL, and it really depends on the specific query engine that you're using. And I am using BigQuery, and you can see here there are a couple different ways to write comments that BigQuery recognizes. So this first one is one way to write a comment. It's using this kind of slash and then the asterisk, and this would allow us to write a multi-line comment. You can see another type of comment is just using a single slash, or we could use a double slash. We could also use our hashtag symbol, which is the same as the way you write comments in Python. And then, of course, my favorite type of comment is just to use these two dashes. And we write these comments in order to write some statements that explain our code. And anything that is in a comment is something that your SQL query engine is going to ignore. All right, so let's just take this last one and we'll look at it as an example. So I'm going to come over here to, this is a query I've written. And what I'm going to do is I'll put it at the very top. And you can see here, if I go and I delete these two dashes, and now it's yelling at me. It's saying, hey, dummy, I don't understand the code you're trying to give me. Because, of course, this is not actually SQL code. So if I go over here and I put those two dashes back in, you can see it turns red, and it's telling me, oh, I understand. This is a comment. I'm not going to try to execute this statement, and I can then have a query that will execute. So if I go ahead and run this, of course, you'll see there's my query. My query executes. Fantastic. All right, so now that we talked about comments, let's get into how to use aliases in SQL. So an alias in SQL really just means we're changing the name of a column. So let's say I really didn't like the name of this column. It's called unique key. I'm going to call it something different, something much more interesting. Let's call it amazing key. That sounds great. All I have to do is use this SQL keyword, and the keyword is as. And so I'll go ahead and run that query, and we'll see exactly what happens when I use the as keyword. Look at that. My column is now called amazing key. It's no longer called unique key. So you can use this to rename columns in just the query results, so that whatever the output you get is, your columns are named whatever you would like them to be. The other thing that you can do with aliases is you can also alias a table. So I could call this table T. Now that really doesn't matter because we only have one table that we're pulling data out of in this query. But when we start doing some joins and introducing multiple tables into our queries, it's going to become really important to give our tables aliases. All right, so we've talked about comments. We have talked about aliases. Let's move into order by. So the order by keyword is used to sort the results that we get from our query. So here's a really good example. We could order by our created date. And the default, I'm spelling something wrong here. The default for order by, if I do order by created date just by itself, it is going to order all of the rows in ascending order according to this column, the created date column. And you can see we have this row from January 1st, 2014, and then we even have this timestamp on it. And the timestamps, of course, progress in time as we go through our rows farther and farther. And now, farther down, we see we've got, all right, our January 2nd, 2014 complaints. So the other thing we could do is if we wanted to, let's say, order the other direction, we want only the most recent complaints. So we could order by created date descending, and that's the DESC keyword just after the column that you have that you're ordering by. And so we can take a look and see that the results here, we are getting complaints that were created today on September 3rd in descending order, our most recent ones at the top. Something else we should know about order by is we can order by more than one column. So just as an example, we have this incident zip code. And now I know that a zip code is not really an integer, but because it's a number, we can have SQL treat it like an integer. And what we can do here is we can order by incident zip. And if we do this, this will give us all of the complaints with the smallest incident zip code at the top. Ooh, look at that. So we actually get some null rows. The way BigQuery is sorting is it's considering nulls to be the smallest possible value. So we're actually going to include a statement here and say where incident zip is not null. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run that query again. We'll take a look at our results. And so we see here our smallest zip code is 76574. And if I go to the last page of results, it's 78759. Now, of course, zip codes don't really necessarily occur in sequential order. The meaning of a zip code is a bit different. However, if we treat this like a number, we get the smallest numerical zip first. So something we could do here is we could order by incident zip code, comma, created date, where we would get first the smallest zip code by number, then we would get the earliest created complaint for that particular zip code. And that would be the order in which our columns, or I should say our rows, are sorted. They're sorted in this order by those columns. So again, we start with 76574, and then we have our earliest complaint for that particular zip code, and then our next earliest complaint for that zip code, which just happens to be in 2023. And then we go on to the next smallest zip code numerically, 78610, the earliest complaint, the next earliest complaint, and so on. The last thing that we should know about order by is that we don't necessarily have to write out the name of the column. We could instead just use a number. So if I were to say something like order by 3, what that will do is that will order by the third column in my results. And I can count these. My first column is unique key. My second column is status. My third column is created date. So typing order by 3 is the same thing as typing order by created date. Now, it's not good practice to always use the number. It makes your query a little bit more difficult to read. If things change in the query, like you added another column in here, all of a sudden you might be ordering by not the column you intend to. However, this is a shorthand that you should know in order to use the order by statement completely, and it can help you write queries a little bit faster, just for testing purposes. All right, so today we talked about comments in SQL. We talked about aliases in SQL, and we also talked about the order by statement. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.